Hey guys, it's Mama Manda. Welcome back to my channel. Today is another installment of Crafting with Mama Manda, and what we're going to be doing is creating bias tape to finish the upper edge of my corset for the Fawn costume that I'm making for the Labyrinth of Jareth this year. So, without further ado, let's go over the materials that we're going to need. So, this is the corset. And if you watched the last episode, that's when we went over how I made this side lacing. But this upper edge of the corset needs to be finished in some way, and I decided to go with the bias tape finishing method. But I didn't want to just use any old bias tape, so I'm gonna make my own using this material. I'm also going to need scissors and a ruler. Now I'm going to be using the continuous bias method. First thing I have to do is locate my salvage edge, which is here. And you can always tell which edge is the salvage edge by either some kind of finishing touch that the fabric manufacturer has put on the fabric. So anyways, what I need to do first is fold this edge upwards like that. This here is the bias edge. It has a lot more stretch than if I just cut this straight horizontally or vertically. So now that I have my bias edge, I'm just going to trim right down that fold. Now that I have my fabric cut on this 45-degree angle, I'm going to take this piece of fabric and this edge, and I'm going to place it on this opposite edge over here. I'm going to make sure to match up these edges as best as possible. And I'm not including this frilliness. I mean, I can just cut it off, but I can also just ignore it. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna trim it off to make my life easier. Done. Okay, so basically now I'm just going to sew down a seam right here, and it doesn't matter what the seam allowance is as long as I use the exact same seam allowance throughout the rest of the creation of this bias tape. Everything needs to be consistent. So I am just going to use the edge of my presser foot as a guide, then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Now the seam is sewn, and now I'm just going to press it open. Ta-da! Perfectly pressed. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is mark my bias lines. So I'm going to be using this big mother of a ruler to do it, because that's just going to be easier than using my tiny ruler. So I want to make double fold bias tape. So what that means is that either side of the bias tape is going to be folded down and then folded again. And the size of the bias tape I want is 1/4 of an inch. I need to make each section 1 inch long. Here I go. Okay, I think I'm done making markings. This should give me plenty of yardage for the bias tape. Also, I'm thinking maybe an inch might not be enough. I mean, I know I said I only wanted to make a 1/4 inch thick double fold bias tape, but I might want to make it a little bit wider, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this and see if it'll be enough. If not, I still have plenty of material to make more bias tape if I need to. So now what I'm going to do with this piece of fabric that has my markings on it is I'm going to turn it to the right side, and I'm going to take these ends and I'm going to flip them to this side so I can see my markings again, and I'm going to pin them offset a little bit, so that way when I pin them together my markings are all going to line up. And I'm going to sew along this line, and then I'll start cutting and it will come out as like a spiral, and I'll have one continuous long piece of bias tape. Here's a closer look. I don't want to sew them with these ends together. I want to offset it. That way I don't get donuts, I get a spiral. Yes, I have my pins in a medicine bottle. That way my daughter can't get to them. Okay, so now I have this all pinned up, and I'm just going to take it into the sewing machine using the same seam allowance that I used on the initial stitch. So I've gone ahead and made this stitch. So now I'm just going to press it open like I did the first one. So now that this seam is pressed, the only thing left to do now is cut along the lines that I created. there you go. Now I've got yards and yards and yards and yards and, well, you get it. So now I have all this bias tape, and all there's left to do now is take it through and create double fold bias tape. Lucky for me, I have a tool that will help me to do that. I've got my bias tape tool right over here, and to prepare this, basically all I have to do is take the pointed corner of my bias tape, and I'm making sure that this is the side of the bias tape that is going to get folded. So I'm just going to take my scissors and snip this to make it a nice even point, get rid of the extra bit of that seam that was sewn on there. So the way that this is going to work now is I'm going to insert the point of the fabric in this opening and feed it all the way through. And there's a slit right here if you want to take a pin and help it go through, but I think I can just about get it. Yep, there we go. Now, because of the way the tool is built, you'll see how it's got kind of that W shape. It's going to fold the fabric as it comes out the other side, and then I'm going to take my iron and press it so that when it comes out, I get single fold bias tape. So I'm just gonna pin this end and my iron, and I'm going to start pressing it down. Just pulling back the tool and pressing it down. Process just continues. I just unpin and repin and move the length of the bias tape forward and keep pressing. Alright, this is the last bit of length for this bit of bias tape. I'm just going to press it all the way to the end, and then we can check how much yardage I have of this single fold bias tape. And now I'm just going to coil all of this length onto this old Christmas card that I have, or any piece of cardboard will work really, or a flash card or anything just to kind of keep it in order and so that the edges that you pressed stay neat and tidy. Now the next thing to do is to fold this in half, pin this end down, and keep pressing. Here's a closer look. Now I know this is very thin, and I think this is the look that I want to go for on my corset, but until I start pinning it and taking a look with this actually on the corset, I won't actually know. Alright, now that I have yards and yards of this fabulous 1/4 inch thick double fold bias tape, I am going to go ahead and attach it to this upper edge of my corset. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn on the bias tape to the top edge of my corset on all 3 sections. Here's a closer look. As you can see, it gives it a very nice, finished, clean quality. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining me for this crafty moment. I hope you have enjoyed watching me make my very own bias tape. The next thing that I have to do for this corset is to add the boning. Now, I already have a video for that. You can watch it right here on this channel. And in the next episode of Crafting with Mama Manda, we're going to see how I'm going to finish detailing the bottom of the corset. So we're going to be adding more of this lace, some rhinestones, some more lace, some beading, you name it. We're also going to try a new technique that I haven't tried before, which is to actually burn the fabric to finish the bottom edge. So that should be interesting and add a very different, unique quality to the bottom edge of this corset. I may even be adding some fur detail. I even have some rabbit fur that I got off eBay, so we'll see how that all works out. But until then, thank you for joining me for this mommy moment, and remember to always remember to take a moment for yourself. Until next time.